What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the In the Round podcast. Got your boy Matt Burrill, and today a very special guest. We have got my good buddy, Mr. Steven Wilson Jr. You may know his song, Year to Be Young, 1994, and he's actually playing a show here in Nashville, Tennessee on October 26th over at The End. You can get your tickets for that and go check him out. He's a real talent. He's got a hell of a story. He's lived a few different lives in his 42 years on this planet Earth, and we got to talk about all kinds of shit. I really, really enjoy it. Hope you will too. Now, without further ado, got to tell y'all about our sponsors real quick. Our friends at Whaletale Media, whaletale.com. Wales and Gracie and Beezy and Paige and the whole crew over there. Make sure you check them out for all your content needs. We love your whales and the Whaletale team. We also have our friends at Saxman Studios, Grady Saxman, Grant, Saul, Will, Tim, the whole team over there, Dylan. We love those guys very much. Make sure you check them out if you're looking for a spot to record here in Nashville, Tennessee. And last but certainly not least, our friends in the green world. They're even making their own products now. Before they were outsourcing them, now they're making them on their own in the lab over at Trailside CBD Emporium. They are the best. They're great. They're growing as much as we're growing, and they're growing the good stuff. I'll tell you that much. Hemp-based CBD and Delta-8 THC products. They even got shit for your dogs, and they have their brand new flagship vapes that you got to check out. It's trailsidecbd.com. Promo code ITR gets you 20% off at checkout. Like I said, they got flower, they got vapes, they got dabs, they got literally everything and anything you could need green-wise. And so check them out. Now, without further ado, going to jump into it. My conversation with the one, the only, very talented Mr. Steven Wilson Jr. here on the In the Round podcast. Yo, I love your style, bro. Like, you're wearing this vintage, like, rose, like, I guess is that like considered a Western shirt? Like, where do you get something like that?
Honestly, my wife got this for me, so I think she got it on Amazon or something like that. But yeah, it is kind of a Western vibe. I'm really big into cardigans too.
Nice.
I don't know, I just love cardigans.
They're comfortable.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to go fully in on the sweater or like the turtleneck or something like that, you keep the room. It gives you that room to breathe, all that stuff. Yeah. And then that hat, you were telling me the story before we hopped on here. You got that at a gas station in Texas?
I did, yeah. Well, actually, my wife got it in a gas station in
Texas. You
got
got a cool wife.
I know, she has some good taste, but she's technically the one who bought it, but she never wore it. And so I was like, I gotta wear that hat. It's my thing. It just feels like something connected to me for whatever. Like, I'm not a super. I've had a very religious kind of upbringing, but I'm not like crazy religious now. Like, a lot of people ask me if I'm Catholic or, whatever, what I believe in, because of this. But I just feel like it just represents kind of more earth, like life, like Mother Earth, so to speak, more so than, I don't know, Mother Maria.
Yeah.
And, I love the symbolism of it. So
absolutely. So you talk about that upbringing, Southwest Indiana, on the border of Kentucky, right?
Well, South Central Indiana.
South Central Indiana.
Yeah, just north of Louisville. So, but yeah, right on the border of Kentucky. Kentuckiana, as they call it.
Kentuckiana. And out there, there isn't a whole lot like going on. Like, that's pretty out there in the country, like cornfields, things like that. I mean, was that kind of like how like movies like Field of Dreams or Signs or things like that?
Yeah, it felt more like Children of the Corn.
Or Children, oh jeez.
I think that's probably more inappropriate.
So you saw like crop circles and like things like that? Like,
I've seen UFOs for sure. I haven't seen crop circles, but I also saw like a lot of like devil worship, so to speak.
Really?
There was a lot of like at least when I was a kid, like a lot of satanic cults and stuff around. And
no shit.
That was like a whole thing. Like, really? And that's kind of what Children of the Corn is about,
Yeah. So
in a lot of ways.
So what's your first ghost encounter? Because I think like ghost or like UFOs. Because like I've had nights where we're growing up in New York. I mean, you see a lot of different lights and things in the sky. But I feel like if you're out in the place where you grew up, South Central Indiana, you don't really see a lot of stuff in the sky. You just kind of see the stars. So when stuff happens, it's like it's very you can tell when it's something. So what was your first like, oh shit, that's a UFO?
It actually, and they both happened within a month of each other, I'd say. One I was deer hunting, and I was on my way out to a deer stand at like 4:30 in the morning, and I saw two lights hovering over a cornfield, just like two orbs, I guess you would call them, and
How high in the sky are they going? Are
I
they
couldn't really tell, but it looked like they were, if I could tell from my distance, maybe like 50 feet in the air, 20 to 50 feet in the air, and they were just hovering in the field, the weirdest thing about it, I was like looking at it, and they look like headlights, like a car, like headlights, but the car was like 50 feet in the air, just hovering. You couldn't really see the vehicle. All I could see were the headlights, like you would if it was a car. And then the lights started moving in like they were equidistant to each other. So they started moving left and right, kind of like a Pong game, but equidistant. They kept the same distance in front of each other, so left and right. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. And then what was crazy is they started moving apart from each other and then coming back to each other. Like, it's kind of hard to see this on a podcast, but they were like moving separately and then coming back together, and then they would come in equidistant together and then move again together left or right. And then the weirdest thing about it is it stopped, and then I had to get out to my deer stand, but I was so intrigued by it. I said, I'm kind of in a hurry, do it again. And it did it again.
Whoa.
And it felt like the thing was toying with me. Like it was putting on a really boring show for me. But,
it knew that whatever was controlling that knew that somebody was watching.
Yeah, it knew I was watching it, and it was watching me, and it was almost felt like it was there for me in that moment. And I just sat out there and ended up getting out to my deer stand really late because of it. And
did you end up getting a deer?
I didn't, not that morning, but I saw a UFO, so I was feeling pretty good about my day. Yeah. But I saw like 6 lights about 3 or 4 weeks later. I was driving down highway, and this is all in Indiana, by the way, southern Indiana. I saw like these U-shaped lights like hovering above me, and to the point that I pulled my car over immediately. Scared. It looked like something out of a movie, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something. And I as soon as I could get my phone out to look at it, all the lights went off, like gone. Whoa. And then it was just gone, and I couldn't see or hear anything. It was
damn. So you've seen it, it's real. I mean, because they talk about like Area 51 and like all that shit that people say it's like covered up and like has happened in different areas, more so out in the West. But I mean, could you imagine the stuff's out there?
There's something out there. I'm not saying it's like aliens from another planet or whatever. It could be just technology we're not aware of. But either way, it was unidentified and it was flying, and it was an object. So it is a UFO.
Yeah, that's my definition.
Yeah.
So another thing, growing up in Indiana that we got to talk about, boxing, a huge part of your life, a huge part of your story. And you said growing up, and you're Steven Wilson Jr., so you're the son of Steven Wilson, who also big boxing guy. Talk about the role that sport of boxing has played in your life.
It was pretty huge. So my dad was a fighter, and he passed away 3 years ago. But he was, the toughest dude I've ever met. So at a very young age, he got kind of this, spark in him to fight when he was about 18 years old, and I came along when he was about 18 years old. I was like a shotgun baby.
Hey.
And he ended up having 2 more kids, a shotgun wedding that followed. So my mom was 6 months pregnant when they got married, and so he had me the whole time. So I got to kind of by the time I was 5 years old, he was 5 years into his career. He was only 23 years old, and he was whooping a lot of, can I say the word?
Yeah.
Ass.
You say whatever you want.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure there's no censorship. He was whooping a lot of ass.
Hell yeah.
And he's just a super strong, tough guy. And so and then he started joining this gym up in Indianapolis, and kind of in the ghetto. And this guy named Champ Chaney took him under his wing. And he's fighting with a lot of African-American fighters. To be honest, he was the only one in the gym. And I just saw him get the crap beat out of him. And there's mornings like he couldn't even open his eyes up. He'd have to open his eyes up with his fingers to see us because his face was bludgeoned in. But and that was just from sparring. That was not even from the fights.
But to be the best, you got to train against the best, and that sounds like something your dad was doing.
Yeah, and so he really kind of earned a lot of respect in that gym. So I saw that kind of happen. Then I saw him fight, and he was on like Muhammad Ali's boxing team. He and Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier had like competitive traveling teams at that point, and at that time he had 3 kids, or he had 2 kids when he was on that team, and about to have a third, and so he just kind of had to make that decision to be a dad, and he still continued amateur boxing super seriously, but he started training me and my brother because we just, decided we wanted to do it at a very young age, probably 6 or 7 years old.
Now, you always hear about like soccer moms or like football dads or like little league parents. What's a boxing dad like growing up with that? Because that's a tough sport. So what was that like growing up and being involved and having the passion for it, but your dad having a big role in that and being a guy that's involved in the sport? Like your dad's a name within boxing.
Yeah. Well, first I got to see him fight a lot, and I got to see him kind of battle it out. And once I saw him doing these things, it kind of gave me the courage to do things like that. I was very quiet as a kid. I was very weird, and I wasn't good at team sports. So boxing made a lot of sense to me because my dad was actually great at team sports and a lot of sports, but I wasn't, and I had his name. I was Stephen Wilson Jr., and we had a lot of differences because I was so weird and quiet and not, crazy athletic, but that boxing was a real unifying thing that I was good at. My brother was really good at it. And so was my dad. So we kind of got to keep that. That was like our thing we had in common, because by the time music came along, he didn't even know how to process all that. And so like him, he didn't throw me in the ring. I went in there on my own. But I think, it was his way of kind of preparing me for life, and without, knowing it at the time, because, I was very academic later and I got into music. Those were all things that he did not know how to manage that world. It wasn't what he was from. But I think he knew, if I can throw this boy in the ring and he can go 3 rounds with an adult man and walk out, there's very little he can't do afterwards.
Yeah. Amen.
Because the bar is set so high for pressure. So I used to get, stage fright and anxiety a lot before I play. And then I'd be like, wait, I've fought another human being in front of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And this is nothing compared to that. It was like the craziest adrenaline rush. Once you step through those ropes, there's no turning back. And that was my dad's kind of motto, was just stepping through the ropes, you've already won, because you've already done something that 1 out of 999,000 people won't ever do. You're just that's just a kind of a rare thing, because I've seen a lot of people that just would weigh in and get ready for the fight and then just drive home before the fight was happening, because the pressure of stepping through those ropes is really high. And
absolutely, and it's that thing. I mean, you get your ass whooped in a ring. That's a tough, in front of people. That's a tough thing to follow. Now, do you still follow boxing to this day?
Oh, heavily, yeah.
So you're, how old are you? You're mid-30s, right?
I'm actually 42.
Oh, you're 42. Okay, so you've gotten to see kind of an era of boxing. I mean, because you rewind to the Tyson days and even the Mayweather Pacquiao stuff.
Yep.
You've gotten to see boxing to where it was bigger than it is in a way now. What do you think it is to where people aren't, the whole world is now not like it was back in the day, where they were watching Ali, they were watching Frazier, they were watching Tyson. As a world, as the entire world, if Mike Tyson was fighting, people were watching. It was primetime news, everything. What is it about the sport today, do you think? Is there something they could be doing differently? What is it?
To promote, well, it's just a different world now, I think. Obviously, UFC has had a big impact on just, contact sports, it really kind of put a shadow over boxing for a long time. But I think there's been a bit of a nice crossover between those two sports, where I've seen, as of late, a lot of interest in it that didn't exist, say, 10 years ago. And social media has been really great for that. But there's a lot of great fighters that are bringing recognition to the sport. I think like Canelo Alvarez and Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and there's a myriad of other fighters that that are doing really well. Caleb Plant, he's one of my local boys that is bringing a lot of fire to the sport. And the social media aspect, I think, is engaging a lot of people. Because boxing is it's a different sport than UFC. A lot of people kind of put them in the same arena, but they're not. It's such a tactical sport. It's like playing chess with your fists. And
that's a great way. I've never heard it described like that, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, totally. And UFC is a little bit more MMA. There's just so many ways to win a fight. And with boxing, there's only really two. Like you win by decision or knockout or TKO, I guess 3, but and then it's a massive, as Mike Tyson would say, it's a thinking man's sport. A tough guy will get hurt really bad in boxing because if you're just tough, you will have no longevity in that sport. You have to be able to have an IQ and a brain. You got to be good at chess, basically, and then also have the conditioning and the toughness that goes along with it. But
yeah, the training for that's got to be brutal.
Yeah, it is. It's the most horrendous thing you can put your body through, but it's one of the most intense things you'll ever go through is a fight. So if you don't really condition yourself well for it, you'll just get destroyed.
Yeah. So how do you grow up you grow up boxing? You're still very passionate about it. You come down here. You end up doing when did you get down to Nashville? By the way, so you're 42 now. When did you move down here?
It'd have been like 2000, 2001. Yeah.
Okay.
I was, a freshman in college. Or a sophomore technically at that point. I'd gone to a school up in Indiana in Anderson for a year, but my mama lived in Smyrna and Murfreesboro most of my life, so I would drive through Nashville to get there, and I always had this attraction to the city that was kind of palpable. It just felt like home to me, and yeah, I mean, I guess I moved down here in 2000, 2001 in order to go to school. I was going to be, I was a microbiologist, and I was going to do an applied science degree because I was quite good at biology and applied sciences in school. And it seemed like a guaranteed ticket out of my hometown, and it was going to keep me out of there. So that was, it seemed like a safe bet, and everybody that I knew told me, hey, you're good at that. You should do that. Even though I was really more interested in music.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the going. So you were working in the professional field in biology and things like that. Like how was that? Like, because that's not something like I don't know many biologists. Like I don't know that world at all. What was that chapter of your life like?
It was interesting. Well, I was a microbiologist and a food scientist. My degree's in microbiology, and but yeah, I worked for Mars, the food company, and R&D.
M&M's, right?
Yeah, but they also have their pet food division here in Cool Springs and Thompson Station. So I worked in R&D for them, making pedigree products and various lines of different brands that they have. But because they do pedigree, Nutro, Whiskas, all those huge brands, and so I got to work in R&D for them, and they were an amazing company. And I was in an indie rock band when it's kind of a weird, convoluted story. When I graduated college, I joined this indie rock band, and instead I was going to go get my PhD because I really thought I wanted to be a pathologist. I was more interested in that line of work. But I started this indie rock band, and we ended up, before we knew it, we were touring with national acts and all this stuff. And then, after doing that about for 4 years, playing 1,000+ shows, probably really getting a lot of road experience, I decided I want to go back into. I just couldn't. That life wasn't sustainable, especially for my wife and stepson at the time. So I went back and worked for Mars, and they offered me a job as in R&D there, which I didn't really foresee coming. And So, and it was like the best job I'd ever had as far as real jobs and great pay, great company, upward mobility.
There's
all
something
that
about
stuff.
having that big boy job. You
Yeah.
know, there's something about that stability. Like for me, I'm a touring guy. Like I'm 26. I'm loving going out and doing it, but I also don't have a significant other. I don't have the kid. I don't have all these other things going on. So I get that going back to the 9 to 5 right there.
Yeah, and when we were touring, we were making very little money, so it wasn't like we were killing it. You know, like it was more of a financial decision. And but yeah, I think I had to work that job to see like what color the grass was on the other side of the fence. And it wasn't as green as I thought it was. And about 3 or 4 years into the job, I had a great boss that told me like they're about to put the golden handcuffs on you. That's what he called it. And it's basically you're going to get paid more than you've ever been paid, and you're going to change your life and adapt to that new income scale, and then your dreams of going and being a songwriter, which I can tell is what you really want to do, because you're writing songs all the time, even in the lab, and like that's all you think about. You're just kind of on autopilot with your job, but they want to make you like a line manager, and you're going to have a lot more responsibilities, and you're kind of at a crossroads really in your life. Do you want this life or do you want that life? And about 3 or 4 weeks after that conversation, I put my 2 weeks in and freaked everybody out, and they were like, "What are you doing? You're going to go write songs? And I was like, "Yeah." And and I went and bartended and waited tables for 2 years and wrote with everybody and anybody that would write with me, because I just wanted to be a published writer, because songwriting was my first kind of love within music. And so they about 2.5 years after I quit my job, I met this guy named Chris Oglesby at BMG Publishing, and he heard one of my weird songs. And he offered me a deal pretty much on the spot. And I took a few meetings before, and everybody told me I was too weird. I didn't write enough songs about trucks and beer and girls.
You weren't too weird. You were too authentic.
I don't know what I was.
That's being too authentic and knowing what you want to say and not writing what other people want you to say. That's what that is.
Oh, well.
Which is a great thing, and you see it worked out for you. Because somebody realized that. Because authenticity to me right now is what's so important, and that to me is what's starting to come back.
Yeah.
Which is why I think a guy like you, Steven, is out there right now got this buzz going on. There's something people are starting to really connect with, the real shit.
Well, I think the real shit is what kind of got me into it. Like, rewind a couple, several years from me moving here. I was on a school bus. I had like an hour and a half ride to school and an hour and a half ride home. First kid on, last kid off. So about 3 hours a day of country music immersion 5 days a week times how many years I went to school.
This is growing up?
This is growing up. So I was on this school bus one day, and it was all like 90s country music. That's the only thing this farmer bus driver would let us listen to. And so I got a lot, I started hearing all these songs, and I started, being affected by them. And particularly, I had this kind of tumultuous childhood with my mom, and a lot of family stuff, and there was a lot of domestic violence, and a lot of I was constantly worried about my mom she lived in Tennessee, and I lived in Indiana, in Seymour, Indiana, and I always just had this constant fear of losing her my whole childhood, and till either someone or something. And I was on that school bus one day, and this song by Tim McGraw called "Don't Take the Girl" comes on.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm like 12 years old or whatever, and I'd heard the song before, but I'd never listened to the song. There's a difference between hearing and listening. And I was sitting there, and I was just sitting on the bus, killing that one, hour and a half that I have to every morning. The song came on, and 3.5 minutes later, I was a disaster. I was like trying to, not to cry on a school bus. And, I was 12 years old, not a good look for a 12-year-old boy, especially in southern Indiana. And so, yeah, I was like, what in the hell just happened to me? Like, I've watched movies for 90 minutes. I've seen the craziest things that haven't had an effect on me. I I was able to copy and paste my mom's situation into this. The song has nothing to do with that situation.
And the Johnny singing about don't
Yeah.
take the Johnny tell
Yeah, it
everybody
was-
don't take the girl, take me.
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
take the girl, take
and
me.
that's how I felt in the
Yeah.
moment. I was like, take me, don't take my mom.
It's powerful.
Yeah, and it was like, oh my God, I never had like an experience like this, and that was the first, you know, my first taste of like, oh, like a song happened to me. That's what a song is. I'd heard these songs my whole life, but I didn't know how powerful they could be. And then I was like immediately like, that's like magic. Like, who did this? Like, what kind of wizard, you know, like put this all together to give me this experience? I come to find out there were these wizards in Nashville writing these songs and creating these experiences, and these artists were, you know, singing them and being the vehicle for them. And that was, you know, that's all I wanted to do, and all I want to do as a songwriter and an artist is to give somebody that same experience, because it was, you know, such a torch to be lit, and all I care to do is pass it on.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because the first album that I remember listening to as a kid, even in New York, where it's not considered to be a huge country market. They say it's the biggest country market just because it's the biggest market and we happen to have a country station. But I remember riding around my grandmother's 1999 Ford Windstar in the car seat listening to that first Tim McGraw Greatest Hits album, and that being, I think it was like track 2 maybe, or it was like track 2 or 3, but I remember listening to Don't Take the Girl. So that's a really cool story with how that like kind of led into it. So when did you start like putting the pen to paper?
Well, I've always been doing it. Like, I've always like secretly wrote poems and stuff like that.
Well, like when did it really become a habit? Like when did the bug bite you?
Probably in college. That's when I just couldn't stop doing it. But I never sang a note in my life. I was a guitar player. I started playing guitar when I was about 16, and I was like a little shredder. I picked it up real quick, and I just thought I was always going to be a guitar player, and I never in a million years, if you told me when I was a kid or even in college, even when I was 25 or 30, hey, you're going to be singing songs, I never would have believed you. Never. Because I never sang a song before. And so I was writing for other people to sing them. That's, in my mind, that's how the process was going to work.
When was that first cut? Like as in college, like where you were kind of just writing, like not like before the pub deal, before all that stuff. When was the first time you heard somebody else singing your song? Because that's got to be a cool feeling as a writer.
Yeah, well, honestly, it was in my indie rock band. That was when the first time because that's where I really started, you know. I was writing, me and the lead singer wrote all the songs for the most part, and you know, some of them I wrote by myself, some of them he wrote by himself, and we were really just kind of cutting our teeth at the same time. But we had this vehicle for like playing them. Like I could literally write a song and we say, let's try it out in the set tonight, and you could instantly see people react to it. So I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. And then you hear that song on the radio maybe, and then that's a whole other feeling.
Now, what was that band like? Like, what was the sound of that band in relation to what you're doing right now? Because indie rock can mean a whole bunch of different things, just like country can mean a whole bunch of different things.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it was, you know, very rock and roll driven. Kind of a little bit of British pop kind of influence, very
cool.
dancey, a little bit of kind of 80s and 90s.
So a crowd likes it; they're going to be moving to it.
Yeah, it's
so
very,
you could really tell.
Very active, and not active rock. That's totally different genre. But
it's amazing how many subgenres rock and roll has.
But yeah, it was, you know, very, you know, kind of British, dancey, very upbeat, and you know, we had a pretty intense live show, which we really prided ourselves on being hopefully trying to be a great live band, and that was probably our biggest strength. So I got a lot of, you know, experience performing live from that band, not just songwriting. And then, you know, after I left the band, you know, because of that band, we started getting plugged into writing rooms. And that's when, like, I really saw that Don't Take the Girl moment came back. Like, holy cow, this is how that song was, like, you know, I got to see, like, the whole process because that wasn't on career day. So, so I got to see that, you know, the wizard behind the curtain, so to speak, or the wizards. And that's when I was like, all right, I have to do this. But I had to go work as a scientist for like 4 years until I could kind of get my, you know, family situated. And And, you know, I had, like I said, to see the color of that grass and then realize it wasn't for me. And then all I could do was just write songs and write songs. And oddly, the first person to ever record one of my songs, he didn't release it, but it was Tim McGraw.
No shit.
Yeah. The first time I ever had like a country recording.
Now, what year would that have been? Because there's multiple eras of Tim McGraw. Like, Tim McGraw was my first concert too. Like my grandmother like loves, and my family growing up, that was like what we listened to was a lot of Tim McGraw. Every time we come to New York or New Jersey, we'd go see Tim McGraw. What era? When would that have been?
It would have been 2016, 2017.
Okay, so that's like around that, like just post like Humble and Kind, like right around that era of Tim McGraw.
Yeah, and I just signed my publishing deal. I just, you know, about 6 months before it, you know, so here I was like, okay, I finally got a publishing deal and I could quit waiting tables and all that stuff. And then, yeah, that happened. I'll never forget the day that Missy Gallimore, who kind of plugs songs for him, I was walking out of Universal Music Publishing, and I was just walking out from her right casually, and she's like, "Hey, Steven, how you doing?" I was like, hey, Missy, so good to see you. I just wanted to let you know Tim cut your song last night. And I was like,
casual.
Yeah, and she's like, all right, have a good day. And she walked off, and I was like, just kind of speechless. I just had to walk outside and just like, oh my God. Like that, it was like a full circle moment.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't release it, I'm releasing it on my record.
No shit. Hell yeah, dude.
That's okay.
What's the title of the song?
It's called For What It's Worth.
Hell yeah.
And it's one of my favorites. And but, you know, it was, you know, whether he didn't release it or not, it was just a real affirmation. I got other cuts, you know, to follow. That was fine. But it was just like, okay, it was that kind of kid that heard that song for the first time and seeing it kind of all connect.
Yeah, for you to be riding in that bus with that old time bus driver, playing country music, nothing else on that station, and that first song that you really listened to. Yeah. And for it to be that same voice singing, the first guy to record one of your songs, even though it didn't get released, that is that ultimate full circle.
It could have been any artist, but it was just like it was him.
Happened to be Tim McGraw.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
That is really really freaking cool, man. So as far as like your music, man, you kind of fit. You're like you said, like you're not the singing about beers and trucks, and you're singing about girls, but not necessarily the same girls that that country artists have been singing about for the last 10 years or so. How would you categorize, for somebody that hasn't listened to Steven Wilson Jr., how would you categorize your music? Like where do you think it kind of like fits?
It's very much, it's country. At least I like to think of it as like, it's like country grunge country.
Yeah.
But, I've just been like, reading people's comments, because people are really good at the game of, oh, you sound like this, or you sound like this meets this meets this meets this. And I hear a lot of like, he's, Kurt Cobain meets Willie Nelson meets John Mellencamp. And, like that, those kind of three genres, or whatever you want to call them, are basically where it sits, and all of those artists were very song focused.
Yeah.
Like the songs were everything, and are everything. And so that's really important for me. Like, Kurt, and they're just so different as writers too. Like, but Kurt's songs were like some of my favorite songs. His approach to abstract lyrics, and the way he would formulate a lyric, and the way he could connect to you without saying something like right on the nose, like perhaps like some other writers would in the country genre. He could really make you feel something.
Paints a picture. Like you feel it as he's singing it. He's singing his heart out. We obviously learned later what he was going through, but with some of those tracks, and a guy like John Mellencamp, another, like you had just mentioned, that he's got again, song very first, and then Willie Nelson, of course, one of the GOATs. So you say the comments and like what you see on like YouTube and TikTok, all that. For you, being a 42-year-old now, we're in this millennial world, Gen Z. I don't even know what generation we're on right now, because they say like Gen Z, X, all that. Yeah. How has social media been for you? Like, that's a whole nother world, and it's like it's part of, like, back in the day, it was just you were an artist or you were a writer. You sang songs and went out on the road, or you got up in the morning and would go write a couple songs. Now it's like you have this social media aspect to it. What's that like?
It's definitely different, but I've been around since the thing has happened. I've seen it all kind of
Yeah.
create, and I was like one of those rare generations that remembers life before. Like I was young, but I remember a couple years before like tech basically took over. And so I kind of remember both sides of it, but yeah, it's definitely something to get used to. And
What's your favorite platform? What's your least favorite platform?
I would say Facebook is my least favorite platform.
Agreed. Very divisive. Not a lot of good coming from that place right now.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I'd say Instagram is probably my most favorite. It's the one where I tend to consume more as a consumer, and I like the just the approach from artist to viewer, however you look at that. But I don't know. I like to really, if from a social media standpoint, really make it more about the music. I'm not really interested in making it about me, because a lot of these songs are gifts. Like they aren't mine, even though they are mine. They're not, and
Yeah.
and it would be a disservice to those gifts for me to make it all about me. And so I think the power of that moment I had with that Tim McGraw song was the fact that I was the star of the song for 3.5 minutes. Like Tim McGraw stepped aside and I became the star. And that's kind of how I want to approach my social media.
Yeah. Yeah, like you want it to be like how radio would, how that listening on that bus, that there was that vehicle, like you talk about the vehicle for the art, for the song. The social media like TikTok's been a vehicle that you've seen big time, man. Like I saw today, it was blowing up again today, man.
Yeah.
Talk about what that's all been like, because that's something where 2 years ago nobody had any idea what TikTok was. I'm sure it was out there, but obviously 2020, all the crazy shit from last year to where we are now, it's something where music has really benefited from it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's been a real eye-opening thing for me even, and I enjoy what TikTok has to offer. Even surprisingly, and it surprised me as a platform in ways that it's expressed humanity in ways that other platforms haven't. I feel like it's, a lot of stuff on Instagram and Facebook can be very contrived and staged and planned, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like TikTok is a little more loose and a little bit more spontaneous, and I see a lot of humanity in it. And I guess the biggest blessing from TikTok is seeing the duets and watching someone react to your song and maybe even cry, maybe laugh.
Have you had that happen?
I have, yeah, and it's happened several times. From this song called "Year to Be Young," 1994. It's like a nostalgic song, and it's, that's what I'm after. Like that's my real goal, is to see people have this experience, and I gotta say TikTok figured that out, and I'm grateful for that component of it, because seeing that's been a real, just like, that's really all I want. Money is great, and I'd be happy just being financially content, but those moments mean way more to me than any monetary value. So seeing it affect people is super important, and it has that. It's just immediately you see humanity. Yeah, instantly.
What's been the most eye-opening reaction to that song? Because nostalgia is something that everybody feels. No matter how old you are, at some point you have that moment. You can be 10 years old and think back to that time when you were 5 years old. But obviously, as you get older, you get more nostalgic moments. So that's a pulling on a string that a lot of people have in their heart. What's been the wildest reaction where they're like, whoa, this song really hit this person?
Well, yeah, I mean, you just see a lot of people be like, why am I crying? Like stuff like that, which is always like, when you can surprise people, because that's the moment I had on that bus. That's literally what I said to my, why am I crying? And so like those kinds of comments, and just seeing like people of all ages, like that were older than that character in that song or way younger, like seeing 13-year-old and 16-year-old kids, like, hey, I was not even thought of in 1994, but for some reason this song connects with me. I don't know how, or I don't know why, but I feel like I'm living this song, and that's super cool. I wish I had lived this song, and or whatever it is. And I think everybody, nostalgia is just like you said, is a universal theme from songs to like summer, was it, the 69 song.
Yeah.
Whatever. 1979 by Smashing Pumpkins. Is it Summer of 69? Is that what it's called?
I think
All
so,
right.
yeah.
I was double, questioning my judgment there. But 1979 was a song by the Smashing Pumpkins that I remember hearing. And, like, I don't know why. Like, I wasn't around in 1979 to be, and so that, I don't know why it affected me, but it did. And so that's a cool thing to see that I didn't really quite think about, is seeing like younger people react to it and older people react to it, and the people that actually lived that as well, like very much reacting to it, because they're like, I think escapism is a priceless commodity right now.
Absolutely, for sure.
And it offers that for just at least hopefully 3 minutes and 13 seconds or however long it is. But
yeah. So when did you write that song? Like, how did you come up with a nostalgic escapism, like that kind of song? Like, where does that come from?
Well, it wasn't the intention of the day. I was writing with this guy named Ben West, who co-produced all my songs with, and it was the first song we ever wrote together, just the two of us, and I was telling him about this tragic first kiss that I had out at a roller skating rink. And it was like a cold January night, and I met this girl named Amber. And and she asked me to skate around. Like I said, I was a really awkward, quiet disaster of a kid. And she asked me to skate in a couple circles around the skating rink, and we held hands, which was a first for me.
Yeah.
And okay, and so we did that, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're like going out now. And then I guess her mom was coming to pick her up. I didn't know that. Went to the bathroom. I come out. My friends are like, hey, dude, she's leaving. Her mom's here to pick her up. She wants you to kiss her. And I was like, it was freezing outside. So I walk outside, and I was like, but I don't know her. I don't really want to kiss her. I don't know her like that to do that, and I don't want to do it right here. It's like the first time I ever kissed a girl. All my friends like had sex already. They're like 13 years old, 12 or whatever it is, and
Southern Indiana.
Yeah,
shit.
there ain't nothing to do with drugs and sex. But anyway, they had their fat faces smashed up against the glass while I went out there and basically headbutted this girl with my teeth.
Oh,
and
no.
It was terrible. Like, basically we just smashed our face together. She turned around, went and just jumped inside her mom's car, and they drove off. And I was left there and my friends were just kind of laughing and like, oh, you did it, like, it's terrible. But she broke up with me on like a cordless phone like 2 hours after that. And, I started listening to grunge music like immediately,
Puts you into your feels.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I heard all this stuff. Kurt was already gone, I think, at that point, but I heard a lot of people talking about Nirvana and stuff, so I gave it a spin. And, and it connected instantly.
What was it, the Nevermind album, or
it
what?
It was the Nevermind album, and it was a song called Something in the Way.
Bro, I remember that one where then it comes back in towards the end of the track, and it's just like rocking because it's very slow.
Very low, like chill,
and then there's
strings.
and then there's that break in between it where it's just like silence for a while, right? And then it comes back. Is that the song I'm thinking of? Where then at the end there's like
there might have been a hidden track because it was the last song on the record. I think there was a hidden track.
Yeah, there's a hidden
it.
track, and it's just lots of noise. Like it just picks up.
Yeah, it's just
very
nuts.
very hard.
But yeah, and I just remember that song like okay, and I was talking to my friend, but I was like, yeah, dude, I was like laying on my bedroom floor with the headphones on, just kind of hiding in that song. Like felt my first heartbreak, terrible first kiss, out at a roller skating rink, and literally like. I was just talking, and he just was like writing it down, and yeah, like, and then 1994 just kind of came out. Like we just, hiding in my headphones, laying on the bedroom floor. 1994 was just like it just fell out instantly. So we wrote it. It was just a conversation that turned into a song, and that was literally how it happened. We wrote it probably in an hour. It was very quick. And then we spent another couple hours kind of building the demo and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's got to be cool. What's it like writing with your producer? Because that's something that you don't really see a lot in country music. It's a big thing in rock music and like different things where like bands have their producers and the producers play such a big role. In country, you don't seem to find that as much. So what's that like writing with Ben, your producer? That's got to be pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, when I met Ben, Ben's also a great songwriter as well. So when we met, he's a writer, producer, and I guess I'm a producer as well, but not to the extent that Ben is. And so we were there like writing songs for other people. We weren't writing for my record. We weren't like that song like got put on hold by 4 or 5 different artists.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, like and it just kept getting dropped or for whatever reason and I didn't know Ben was my producer. Like he was just a guy I just met, and we were just writing a song together.
It was just a 2-way co-write.
It is a 2-way co-write, and we pitched that song for 2 years, and then my dad died, and it just changed everything. And Ben and I was like, I had these songs. I'd written some of them by myself. I had a few others that I'd one with him and another with Tony Lane and Marv Green. And I wanted to, just record them. Like my brain had kind of changed instantly when my dad died.
Yeah, what's that change? Was it you really being like, I want to go all like I've got something to say, like I want to get this music out there as Steven Wilson Jr. or what?
Yeah.
What was the brain shift in that?
Yeah, that's literally, my dad was my biggest fan, and I think he always wanted me to do something like this, and I just knew something told me that you got to get these songs out there, and it just happened instantly after he died. Like I said, my brain was like instantly rewired, and the man I was before was gone, and it was like and I needed to carry, like in boxing, the junior thing is very important. I don't know, you see a lot of juniors.
Yes.
It's a legacy thing. And I was, Steven Wilson Jr. as an artist suddenly just made sense. I don't know why. It just was like, okay, you're going to do that now. And, you've already, like, you got this great demo. You've already, because I play the guitars and stuff like that. And Ben and I just had a real chemistry, like just organic and like from a writing and production standpoint. So I just decided, hey Ben, I just hit him up. It's like, you want to make it, just record some songs together and see what happens. And he was like, heck yeah. And we, he did it for free. And I like produce the band sessions, and then I go up to Detroit and bring the sessions up there, and we'd go in and do a bunch of stuff. And so we kind of did it in Nashville and Detroit. Because he lives in Detroit. He doesn't actually live in Nashville.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he'd fly down here. So it's a Detroit-Nashville combo.
So does it have more of that rockin' sound with it being
think
in
so.
Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has a more, like, naturally.
And a Midwestern feel, too, with it being in... Because Detroit... Is your hometown closer to Nashville or closer to Detroit?
Closer to Nashville.
Closer to Nashville? Because it's that southern...
It's about 5 hours from Detroit. 3.5, 4 hours from Nashville.
When was it being recorded in Detroit? Was it like in the winter? Because I feel like vibes are such a big thing too, and like
Definitely
you're going up to Detroit in the winter. That's very different than going up to Michigan in the summer. So you kind of have that vibe when you're going into the room where you're seeing all the snow. It gets darker early. Like I feel like that added something to it as well.
For sure, yeah. My dad died on September 15th, and we went and started tracking in like November 22nd. I was in like a real dark place naturally, so I was, in a weird spot. But it was cold, it was dark, and it was appropriate for what we were doing. And it was all just a beta test. I didn't really know what any of this was going to do. And then I released this song called "The Devil," and which is had a big religious upbringing, which was a whole other kind of wing of my story. But I released that song, and that was like the song that started it all. Like, whereas like, okay, you're an artist now. It was like literally overnight. Like, I was not just a songwriter.
From boxer to working doing the research and development down doing the pet food stuff.
Yeah.
To be in the song, to taking getting out of the golden handcuffs, being the songwriter, to that moment where now you're Steven Wilson Jr., the artist.
Yeah.
That's quite a wild 20 years there, dude.
Yeah, it's a weird arc.
That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild, man.
Yeah.
That's a cool ass story.
Well, it's been quite the journey, and I think a lot of the experiences are the things that make it all up. The pain and everything I went through as a kid, from seeing my mom get beaten by another dude, or like drugs and all that stuff, to like crazy Pentecostal super religion. I saw people like
Pentecostal. Okay, so I've learned a lot. So from New York, you're either Catholic, you're Jewish, you're Islamic, or there's some forms of Protestant, but there's not a whole lot. I come down here, I learned there's a million different ways to worship Jesus. Totally. Pentecostal being one of them, and I've learned a little bit about it. But that now I understand what you're talking about when you say the religious upbringing, because Pentecostal is very heavily like involved. Like the church is a big part of your life if you grow up that way. Yeah,
so I grew up in a Nazarene church, and my grandpa was a Nazarene preacher. And Nazarene's a branch of the Pentecostal church, and feel a little bit different, but it's very intense.
That's connected to Trevecca here in town, right?
Yeah,
Trevecca the Nazarene. Okay.
Yeah, and then I had a lot of Pentecostal friends. All my friends were mostly in Pentecostal church. So I had to go to like Wednesday night churches. I had to go to Sunday night churches and Sunday morning churches in order to hang out with them. You had to go to church in order to hang out. So you just see a lot of crazy stuff on a Sunday morning. Like I joke around, but it's not a joke. I used to like sneak out and go to keggers and stuff when I was in high school, around 16 or whatever, and I'd roll my S10 pickup truck back up the driveway at about 4 a.m, and the church service at 10 a.m. was crazier than the kegger that I was just at 5 hours before that, because it was like you get to church at 10 a.m. It was just like people rolling around, walling around, screaming, and people getting demons cast out of them, exorcisms like right there on the spot.
So it's kind of like the scene
speaking in tongues.
So it's like the scene in Borat where he's traveling across the country to go and get Pamela Anderson to marry him, and he pops in the church and they put like the hand on his head, and like he starts like talking in tongues and stuff.
Yeah.
So that stuff's all real.
Oh well,
See, I didn't grow up around that at all.
Oh yeah, I saw all that craziness. So getting slain in the spirit, laughing uncontrollably, all that stuff. It'd be weird, like you would see somebody get like a demon cast out of them, and then you like run into him at the grocery store like a couple hours later, which is like really weird kind of small talk thing to make. Like try to like pick up a conversation with somebody that just got a demon cast out. It's like, what do you say to them? Like, what's up, man? Like, how are you feeling?
Because you're seeing these people like almost 24/7 because it's such small town USA. Everybody goes to the same church, everybody shops at the same grocery store.
Yeah, it's pretty wild behavior for a dude named Doug or Rob or a lady named Eileen. Like, you just don't expect.
Come on, Eileen.
Yeah, come on, Eileen. But no, like you'd see, a lady named Ruth just like freaking out, and then you'd run into her like trying to just casually buy a turkey, like it ain't no big deal. It's like, yeah, that's wild, Ruth. You did some wild shit this morning. But,
I've had friends that have told me like I've experienced like I call it rock concert church, which is like Cross Point, where there's like a full band. It's like you're at a concert and Jesus is involved. Like I grew up Episcopalian, so it was like not. It was like they say it's like being Catholic, but you're allowed to smoke. Like it's a very relaxed form of Catholicism. No confession booth, not as much. You don't hear about us as much in the news. It's a little bit more progressive, but yeah, I've had friends tell me you got to experience a Pentecostal revival or something like that. I need to experience it one day just to see it.
You should. I mean, it's a sector of our culture that has a big influence on a lot of people, whatever you believe in. But it's I think we're all kind of tapping into the same spectrum, and then there's something kind of beautiful about it, even though it's a little bit crazy. And then, maybe there's something good about the rock show church, the Holy Rolling Stones or whatever you call it, like like it is like a rock show.
I think it's called non-denominational, but it's like you'll see guys that are out rocking on Broadway, and then on Sunday mornings they're like in church rocking out. It's like I just watched you watched you partying the night before, playing guitar, doing the same thing. A little less headbanging over there at Cross Point, but they're still into it.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's the whole world.
So another thing I wanted to ask you is, so being in the, and I won't say the Nashville, I'll say the Middle Tennessee area, because that's the correct term. If you're going down to Murfreesboro, if you're going down I-24, which how good is it to see I-24 finally getting the road work that it needs?
Finally, yeah.
Because you've been seeing potholes there for probably decades for you. What changes have you seen in Middle Tennessee in 20 years? Like, what was, you say you fell in love with Nashville when you first came here around Y2K. What had you falling in love with it then? Because it's definitely got to be different now. It's different now for me, and I've only been here 3 years, and the whole skyline looks different.
Yeah, it's been quite the change, just to see all the growth that's happened here. And I kind of like had a feeling it was going to happen for some reason. Like,
really?
It just seemed like, at least in like 2005 and 2006, I just remember there just kind of being an undercurrent in this city. Like,
how so? What do you mean by undercurrent?
It is not palpable. I can't really quantify it. It just was like, I just had a feeling to it, and then the big Wall Street crash happened in '08, which was a little weird, but Nashville just kind of kept growing. And I was like, okay, this is turning into something. And then by 2012 and 2015, here we go. Is this gangbusters here, and the real estate market's crazy too. But yeah, I mean, that's seeing all the growth between Murfreesboro and Nashville and Clarksville and Goodlettsville being a town now. Like, it's just like these were all just little bedroom communities.
Lebanon being a big place, Mount Juliet being a big place, Spring Hill being a big place.
Absolutely,
like, all those areas. It's got to be. What do you miss about Nashville 10 years ago?
Less traffic, I guess. But, they would just had a little bit more of a small town feel. I think everybody says that. I think the music scene was different and perhaps even better, because I think this town was built around music, and now it's got other dimensions outside of music, from the tech world to healthcare to there's HCAs based out of here now, and you just have a lot, kind of like Austin, where you have these multi-dimensional.
Yeah, I hear comparisons to Austin and comparisons to Denver a lot.
Yeah, so you get all this kind of these other avenues of business. So like, the arts kind of tend to get overlooked and overshadowed by money, and the tech business doesn't really care about the music scene here and the history and the legacy of music in this town, and that's a little upsetting, I think, or they don't at least have the reverence for it that most people that moved to Nashville moved here for music 20 years ago.
They moved here for the pursuit of their musical dreams and aspirations.
They didn't come here to work, at some tech company or work for HCA or work for
or make six figures being a bartender on Broadway,
or that too.
That stuff too, because that the tourism is a whole nother thing as well.
Absolutely. And so there was just a different intention for people being here, and now, like, I'd say there's just a much larger slice of the pie of people that are here just for a 9-to-5 job. They're not big dreamers, and big fish in small ponds come into a really big ocean.
And you talk about the real estate market exploding. What your first time living on your own in Middle Tennessee? Where was it, and how much was your rent? If you don't mind me asking.
Oh shoot. Okay.
If you could think back.
Well, I lived in Sylvan Park, just to give you some reference.
Nice area.
It's nice. It wasn't quite as nice then, but it's a nice area. Me and my lead singer of my indie band lived there. We paid $500 a month in rent and split it, so $250 a month was all.
In Sylvan Park?
In Sylvan Park, right there. Whoa. Between off Murphy Road and Charlotte. Yeah, so it was $250 a month is all I had to come up with, and like $75 in utilities. So all I had to do is make like $325 a month, and I was clear, and make my $100 car payment for my shitty, Chevy Corsica or whatever it was I was driving at the time. But
I think the utilities, if you're living in a house with somebody near Sylvan Park, are closer to that $250.
Yeah,
rent
absolutely.
You're paying. So I mean, that's crazy to hear, because Sylvan Park is like, and again, you said it's different back then than what it is now, but
still, I mean, it's probably like for that same. if that same unit is even there, it's probably 15 to 1,700 at least, if not maybe closer to 2 for the whole thing.
Yeah, which you start pricing out the folks that are kind of leaving home, leaving that small town to pursue their dream.
Yeah.
Like they're like the tech guys and people like that are coming in, tech guys and girls that are coming in, can afford more of that stuff. But it's tough when you come down here. If you're coming from XYZ city, it's tough to kind of get on your feet.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of pushed the creators and the artists to the wayside a little bit because like you said, they can afford more. And usually, if you come here to be a broke ass songwriter or an artist or whatever it is, you're kind of like, just scraping by, and it's very hard to scrape up $1,700 a month in just rent. Yeah, like you really kind of got to commit to an occupation like as your side hustle, and then your real hustle that you're really here for sometimes gets put to the wayside because you're just so occupied with trying to make your rent.
Yeah, I think that's why all these little, like you were talking about, like Clarksville and Goodlettsville and all these little subsidiaries have grown so much too, because it's a little bit more affordable out there. So you've got a lot of artists and writers and musicians. That's a whole other thing too. Like if you're a drummer, you just come in here and you like McElwain right there. He's a drummer. He's not a writer or an artist, but if you're just a musician, there's a place for you in this town. So
for sure,
a lot of different people moving in. So now we fast forward, coming up towards the end of 2021. It's been a pretty good year for you, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been kind of a transformational year in a lot of ways. I got management and booking and it's just kind of all this stuff has kind of happened on its own because we put those songs out and just kind of a little leap of faith. And it's been a pretty wild year.
So what's coming up the rest of this year? So you said you were just up in South Dakota.
Yeah, I was just up there.
Deadwood, what you said is exactly how it sounds.
Yeah, and it's an awesome town. It's like a Wild West town. And played at a songwriter festival up there called the Wild West Songwriters Festival, which is an awesome fest. Anyone that's writes songs likes songs should go up there for it. But I'm making a record right now. I'm following up the songs we've released. It's like, okay, the beta test it's been tested, so to speak. We got our data, we got our results, and the perhaps
data's good.
The data's good.
The data is very good.
Yeah, and so okay, let's continue, and we have a really good blueprint, and then we're just keeping it the same, the Nashville-Detroit combo, not changing anything. So same studios, same players, same everything, and it's just let's go, let's make more music, let's play shows, and that's the future. So
hell yeah! Anything big coming up for 2022 you can share with us?
Well, I got a tour with Brothers Osborne.
Bro, that's huge.
Yeah, over in the UK, and that's going to be great. So I really want to spend a lot of time, over in that market as well. I just
have you seen good numbers from abroad with the music?
For sure. Yeah, especially in the UK. I would say UK and Australia has been like.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. They have a different, having toured over there a little bit, they just have a different, I think, outlook on music. It's a little bit more of a culture to them. It's a lifestyle, if anything. And maybe it's just tapping into that ethos a little bit more so than here. But we're having obviously great results here too.
And do you know John and TJ well? Have you gotten to know those guys? I know they had cut one of your songs, right?
Yeah, they did. And it's one of my favorite songs, and called "Make It a Good One." And honestly, those two guys and I met through a song, that song "The Devil" I released. I think it was through that, and I think TJ had heard it or something, or John had heard it, I think. And my friend Kate York had played it for him because I hadn't even released it yet. I was just kind of sending it to her to kind of just get her ears on it, like, what do you think of this mix? Is this garbage? Am I an idiot? Kind of thing. And she was like, okay, I love this. And then she's like, I hope you don't mind, but I sent this to John and TJ. And anyway, they just responded back that they love this and they want to write with you. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And so we met, started writing songs together, and just kind of got to hang out and realize, okay, we have a ton in common. And now they just feel like really, good dudes, good friends, like kind of like family in a lot of ways. I just kind of connect to them John hit me up and said, hey, you want to come open up for us in the UK? And I was like, Well, hell yes. And so here we are.
Hell yeah,
Hopefully
dude.
there's more to come,
Yeah, man. And you talk about you're coming up with playing in that indie rock band and like the rock show being such a big thing for you and like the
Yep.
strength of that band. You look at the Brothers Osborne, that live show. I mean, their songs and their records are great, like great writing, like they're great all the way around. But their live show, if anybody hasn't been to a Brothers Osborne live show, I highly recommend going
Yeah,
because
for sure.
those boys rock. So that's really cool for you too. I think that's a great pairing, like for you to
thank
be
you.
out with them, and I'm excited for you, dude. That's freaking awesome.
I'm super stoked. Thank you for saying that. And it's just our show is very much a rock show as
Yeah.
well. Like even though I write country songs, but the show is very rock and roll. I can't help it.
Yeah, there you are. That's
I wouldn't
yeah.
if I could.
Yeah, you're gonna be you, man. If you were anybody other than yourself, like it wouldn't be the same thing.
Yeah,
you know?
I guess so.
That's awesome, man. Well, bro, this has been awesome. Like
thank
getting
you.
to talk with you. A few last things. When you were first starting out, what's something you wish you could have told yourself when you were getting this songwriting journey going? Or something like a message you'd pass along to younger you.
The gears are going to turn slower than you think, and I guess don't chase anything. Just I guess write what is real to you, and which is something I think I've mostly always done. But just write the realest thing you can find, and just put your faith in that, and I guess that's what I would say. Yeah.
Awesome. Best. I've learned that, especially in Middle Tennessee, but throughout the Southeast, folks love their Mexican food. Best Mexican restaurant in Nashville. Your favorite?
Probably Mas Taco or
Mas
something.
Taco?
Like that. Yeah, I gotta say over in East. Can't really go wrong there. Let's see. There's got to be another. Was it Aztec over there off Nolensville? That place is fire too.
That place is really good, and that's in like a hidden little spot. That place is great. Best hidden gem in Nashville.
Best hidden gem.
Either food or whatever, just something that doesn't really get talked about. That's like a great place that if somebody's listening, they're visiting Nashville, they got to check out.
All right. It's not in Nashville. It's outside of Nashville.
Okay.
This is
the
a
area,
top
yeah.
secret little spot.
What's that?
It's called the Beacon Light Tea Room.
Where the hell is that?
It's out west of Fairview. It's about 15 minutes west of the Loveless Cafe. So if you can't get into the Loveless Cafe, or they say, hey, you got a 2-hour wait to get into the Loveless, just start heading west about 20 minutes to the Beacon Light Tea Room, and you'll get there way quicker than you'll get seated at the Loveless. And it's really good. So, and it's just like a little restaurant right off Highway 100. You can't miss it. Same highway that Loveless is on. So I'd say, go there.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely. I'm gonna have to check that out. I know we're here in Hermitage. We'll drive west just to check that out. Hop on Highway 100.
Best biscuits and homemade jam and fried chicken and all that stuff and breakfast.
Okay,
and it feels real.
Feels real. That's what it's all about. Well, man, talking about real, you're a real guy. We really appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us. Where can people find you on all the socials?
Stephen.Wilson.Jr. on Instagram, Stephen Wilson Jr. on TikTok, and it's Stephen with a PH, like the biblical spelling.
The proper way to spell it.
Yeah,
none of those D's.
Looks like Stephen, but yeah, I think those are the best ways to find me. And then I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all that stuff. Stephen Wilson Jr.
And you got the website where people can find tour information and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's www.stephenwilsonjrmusic.com.
Hell yeah.
Whole lot of that.
There you go. Awesome, man. You love to see it. And are you cool playing a song for us?
I am.
Awesome, man. Well, I think the one that you can play. You can play Year to Be Young, 1994. You can play whatever song you want. You want to hit us with some new shit? Like, we're all about it. So you play whatever songs you want, man. So while Steven gets that guitar set up, guys, thank you for listening to another edition of the In the Round podcast. absolute blast. Make sure you check out our boy Steven Wilson Jr. And want to give a quick shout out again to the sponsors, Whaletale Media, Saxman Studios, and of course our friends in the green world, Trailside CBD Emporium. Use promo code ITR at checkout. You save 20%, or I guess 20% on your order, and you can get high legally like we do here at In the Round Podcast. Now, without further ado, gonna send it to our boy Steven Wilson Jr. He's gonna play some songs for y'all. You guys have been listening to the In the Round Podcast.
I must admit I felt the flame. Kurt Cobain, a Fender Mustang. MTV brought me up. This is your brain on drugs. And I won't forget that first girlfriend that got me into Boys to Men. I grew up a lot that year. My sweatshirt said no fear. My life was a stereo, and it was everything. First one in line for the last dance with Mary Jane. Hiding in my headphones, laying on the bedroom floor. 1994. Tell Mom, see you later. You don't be blowing up my pager. When the show's over, I'll come home. When that is, I don't know. Teen spirit in the air for y'all on cell phones. Study all passing notes. Yes, no, or I don't care. When my life was a stereo, and it was everything. Soundtrack, first kiss, out at the roller rink. Hands held, 2 hearts falling on a hardwood floor. 1994. 1994. Think you know it all when you don't know any better. Tell yourself you're gonna live forever. Fire's burning, and I'm still holding the door. In 1994, the year to be, the year to be, the year to be, the year to be, when my life was a stereo. Back when my life was a stereo, yeah, yeah. Back when my life was a stereo, and it was everything. Soundtrack takes me back through all those memories. Hiding in my headphones, laying on the bedroom floor. It takes me back to the days when a song was worth so much more. 1994.